I
Oh
just
my
went
gosh.
through my morning routine of filling my coffee cup way too full and then slowly double-handed walking it to my destination. So I'm so prepared to talk about it
Oh,
now.
I have my trusty Diet Coke. Oh, that was creepy.
Always.
That's
Not
so
always
funny.
creepy, always Diet Coke.
Yes, it cut out on the screen.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lesbian Book Club podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Haley, a Taurus, and this is Lauren, a Capricorn.
Hi.
And we are so excited. We're going to be covering Disobedience today. And Disobedience was released in 2018 and directed by Sebastian Lelio. So let's get into it.
Yes, and it stars Rachel Weisz and Rachel McAdams, double Rachels here, which, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Rachel Weisz is actually, she's got to be bi, right? Like, I know she's married to a man, but she, well, from all the clips I've seen of her, she has like one of my favorite clips where the interviewer asks what she's excited about on the red carpet, and she's like, "I'm just excited to look at all the pretty girls." And I'm like, "You're gay, but you're
That's a
married
very
to a
bi
man."
thing to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, oh my God. And then, yeah, Rachel McAdams, who is one of the most versatile actresses I think I've ever seen. Like, did you know that she did,
hmm
did you know that she did Mean Girls and The Notebook in the same year?
I did.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
The swing that you would have to go through emotionally. I mean, just thinking about that as an artist, I to get yourself in the headspace of the notebook, Lauren just absolutely fell.
I just I was trying to match you on the Zoom like proportionately, and I went to push my computer back, but I'm the biggest klutz in the world, and I almost just completely knocked over my mic, my computer, my soda. I almost just knocked over everything.
She not only fell, but the look in her eyes was pure bewilderment, and her arms just went completely stiff and straight.
I caught it though. I caught it.
It was a good moment.
Oh my
I wish
God.
you all could have seen that.
Oh,
Oh.
I'll put it on the freaking. I'll put it on the Instagram. I have no shame. Um, yeah, for Rachel McAdams to go from being like a complete bitch to this like complete sweet, like lost in love girl, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. Which, okay, I need to just go on like a 5 second tangent right now
Do
about
it.
Mean Girls
Okay.
and Mean Girls the musical and Sabrina Carpenter and Renee Rapp because I'm in love with both of them. And usually femmes are not my thing. And Sabrina Carpenter isn't even a lesbian, but I'm in love with her. And um, there was like one show that they were in it at the same time right before COVID hit. And I just really wish I was there. That's the
Oh,
end of
who did
that.
Sabrina play in I'm assuming she was in the Mean Girls musical?
Sabrina was Katie and Renee was Regina George,
Shut the
obviously.
fuck up.
Yeah.
Really? How did I not know
Also,
that?
I don't know. But also, one of my friends went to high school with Renee, and I guess she wasn't very nice in high school, which makes me sad.
Okay, if
And
you're that hot, you don't have to be nice. It's fine.
I don't think that's true. I think that
Okay,
if
but
you're
here's the
that
thing.
hot, you have to be extra
Okay,
nice.
hold on, because I have to tell everyone this because it's like my claim to fame. Renee Rapp and I have so many of the same placements. So she's a Capricorn sun. That's one. We're the same. She has a Pisces moon, just like me. Same. She has a Capricorn Mercury. Same. She has a, there's another one in there that we are the same. What's her rising? I forget. But we have like five of the same placements. And listen, I mean, actually, I was really nice in high school because I didn't have that many friends. So I was nice to my friends. But I definitely like Capricorns can just have like a bratty mean side. So she's like perfect for Regina George. But she seems really sweet now. Just not if you're like that one bus guy that she really hated in that one interview.
Oh, she ripped him apart.
Which I love it. Don't ever change Renee Rapp. Did you see her at Coachella? That's, I mean, I know you weren't there because you were with me this weekend, but did you catch the clips?
No.
Haley, you are a bad lesbian.
I just, here's the thing. I wander around. I sometimes look on the internet, but I don't usually see the things that you ask me about.
That's true, unless I send them to you, which I think I
Yeah.
sent you a Renee Rapp clip of the L word introducing her. And oh my God, you're not gonna get this. The L word cast, I sent this to you. I said this is gonna be you in like a year.
Oh,
Um,
that. Yeah.
oh, you didn't know who the people were. Okay, so Bet and Renee Rapp's girlfriend, Toa, they are like the same person, like 30 years apart. And then everyone is saying that like Renee Rapp and Tina are like the same, which on the L, let me explain this to you. On the L word, Bet and Tina are together and they're like the most canon, iconic lesbian couple. They're amazing. And then Renee Rapp and Toa look almost identical to them. They're like blonde for Tina, and Toa has like big curly hair, and so does Bet. And I'm in love with Bet. So this was so cool for me. And then
Okay.
Renee did like the most amazing concert. She didn't have like backup dancers. She didn't have anything. It was just like her vocals and like her band. And it was like, it was incredible. They're calling it like Sapphic Cella because of all the lesbians
Okay.
there.
I did see a couple posts of my friend Jules is there, and she's like, Renee, you were so engaging the entire time. Renee, oh my God, you were wonderful. Renee, Renee, and I'm just like, okay, I guess Renee gave a great performance. But I
Um,
didn't actually see anything of Renee.
okay, fair. But Chapel Roan also fucking crushed it. So here's something really cool about her is I went to this event called Queer Field Day. I went to like their
Yeah.
inaugural. Yeah. If you're in LA, go to the events. I think they're starting up again. They're incredible. But we went the second, I think it was like their second or third one. They did like a picnic in the park thing, and Chapel Roan performed there. And this was in
Hmm.
2021. Yeah, it had to be 20, like summer of 2021 before like anyone knew her. And now there's like this clip going viral from that show of her singing Pink Pony Club, which is where I fell in love with her in the song I fell in love with her with. Um, and then like cut to like her Coachella performance, and it's like everyone's just like, "Oh my gosh, like how far you've come." And I was like, I was sitting like 3 rows away from this
Oh my gosh.
performance,
I
and
just
it was
got
amazing.
chills because LA, just crazy things like that can happen.
I know. Bob the drag queen was there, like at the performance. There was like so it was so cool. I'm like, I'm sure I have like a video of it somewhere in my phone. Um, but yeah, it's really cool. I'm like obsessed with her. Her song Good Luck Babe, that's gonna be like my new karaoke song. I literally on the way to the bar yesterday, because Haley and I watched the WNBA draft at this great bar in Culver, and I made a karaoke playlist for the drive down there because I was like, it's a karaoke bar, which I've never done karaoke in my life, except I'm too scared. I'm too scared to like actually get up there and do it. I've done it at Brent's house, our friend Brent. I've sung there before, but not
Well,
like
we've got to get you out to karaoke. I oof, what's that place? The Barney's Beanery. At Barney's Beanery, I did it for the first time back because I had a traumatic karaoke experience, and then I had so much fun at Barney's Beanery.
but
And so
you can
now
sing.
I'm reintroduced to the world of karaoke, so we can go.
Okay, I'll go and
That's where I was going with that.
I'll go and I'll support you.
No, I'm saying you have to also do it.
Okay, I'm just like a middle of the road singer. I'm not like I don't have like talent or anything, but I can
But
put
do you
on a
know
show.
how many people are absolutely terrible karaoke singers and still get up there?
I have like major what's it called? I don't have like stage fright. Like, okay, I could give a speech in front of 10,000 people and not give a fuck. But I feel like I like want to be a good singer. So if I get up at karaoke and everyone's like, ew, I'm gonna have like my dreams crushed of being a Grammy singer.
I see, I see. So you want to keep it to yourself.
Yeah, if you come, have we sang in the car together yet? I feel like we have to have. I sang
I think
Renegade
so,
for
yeah.
you. I sang Renegade for you, and I think I sang You're Losing Me. I can belt a Taylor Swift song, that's for sure. Okay, let's talk Disobedience. You had
Yeah.
not seen it before, right?
No, I hadn't seen it before. And right in the opening scene, this old man is there, and I'm like, Okay, he's talking about angels and God versus beasts and impulse versus humans and choice. And I was like, okay, immediately the title is coming into play with disobedience because humans
Yeah.
and choice. And like, okay, are they choosing angels and God or beasts and impulse? And I think we're going to have some disobedience happening. I already
Yes.
know where we're going with this, but
So yeah, it's a I don't want to say Hasidic Jewish community because I don't know fully what that term means, but it's definitely like an extremely conservative Jewish community where this movie takes place. Um, and yeah, I love the beginning. So actually, do you know this about me? I have a biblical studies degree. And I went to Bible college and studied for like 4 years there. And I was like an Old Testament girly, which sounds really weird because like I love the Old Testament. So I think I saw this movie when I was like 1 or 2 years into school, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like, this is so intriguing for me. Um, and then I haven't watched it in like a really long time. And then this stuff came back, and obviously I'm not like in the religious community anymore. And everything like came back to me, and I was like, I am an Old Testament girly. I love this shit. Like this is so fun. So yeah, I think they're like it's like the main rabbi of the community is like going through the Torah and probably like the all the all the rabbis like do all these arguments again like with each other through writing, and so I think he's like talking like doing not a sermon because that's like a Christian term, but like that type of thing at the very beginning. But then I love that it like cuts to such a stark contrast. You just hear like the photography shutter click, and then we cut to like Rachel Weisz in New York, who is a photographer, like photographing this like really old man with all these tattoos, and like it's just like a really cool like from the not modern to like the really modern. But
Mhm.
do
Which
you have oh
when she's doing that, the man she's photographing with the tattoos makes a comment about he has Jesus and a cross on his chest. And he makes a comment about like, oh yeah, the Jesus hurt me the worst.
hmm.
And he's speaking about the tattoo because of the placement.
Right.
And he got that tattoo the first when he was 15, but just that comment and then the way that she reacted to it, I was like, okay, I don't know this girl's relationship, but I think that she's obviously tied to this community somehow, that of this scene that we just saw.
Right.
And that gave me this sort of insight of, okay, maybe probably it's not Jesus
Yeah.
because it's this Jewish community, but probably religion has hurt her or is going to hurt her in some
Yeah.
way. That was just a really interesting comment to have this guy make.
I love the writing in this movie. I feel like it's so poignant, and like everything has like because there's actually not that much dialogue. I think this movie has so much silence in it. And like I think the director and like, whoever else wrote it, the storytellers in this movie let the silence like do the talking, which I like love. I think we talked in a previous episode where like you could say so much in the silence and how women like communicate so well, like non-verbally. And I felt like the words that were used in the writing in this movie, everything was like soaked in like meaning and emotion.
Yeah, there's no words that go to waste.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Do you have like a religious community background or anything like that?
Yeah, I grew up in the Methodist church, and my dad is not religious, but my mom, I mean, it was never like we were never super religious, but my whole like my grandma and my aunts and my cousins, we would all go. None of the men really went. Like every once in a while an uncle would show up, but um yeah, and so I grew up kind of it was more of a community to me more
Mm-hmm.
than anything else.
Yeah.
And I went to church camp in the summer, and that was really special to me. Um, my mom still goes to church, and I go on holidays, but I wouldn't really consider myself religious anymore. I would consider myself spiritual. Um, but Yeah, that's where I grew up, was in the Methodist church. And it wasn't ever like, oh, you have to go every single Sunday and
Yeah.
you have to believe this and you know,
So it wasn't as like dogmatic as like what we're gonna
no.
see in the film.
No, and there's kind of two divisions of the Methodist church and one is very strict and one is like very liberal and I grew up in a very liberal church.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Jesus
Yeah.
didn't hurt you as much.
No. There
um,
were pride flags in my churches.
oh my
Yeah.
God, I love flags. I love your accent. Your Midwest accent comes out in those AG words.
Flags,
Flag.
bags,
Yeah, say bagel.
bagel.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, let's like get into it. Okay, cool. So what happens while we are looking at Rachel Weisz doing her photography job?
Well, she gets a call, and we don't immediately know what it's about, but
Hmm.
we do know that that preacher had just, or the rabbi had just collapsed. So probably it's related to that. And then we see, you know, her reaction to this is, um, she's going through the stages of grief,
Hmm.
in the following scenes.
Yeah.
And she's obviously trying to deal with something. She's having sex, she's going ice skating, she's crying, she's smoking, she's doing whatever. So
Yeah.
um yeah, she then ends up back in this community knocking at this door, and the man who opens the door is surprised to see her.
Right. But she doesn't seem to register that surprise at all, I felt like, because she was just like, oh, hey, like, I'm here. And her name is Ronit. So Rachel Weisz's
Mhm.
character's name is Ronit, and Rachel McAdams' character is Estie. Actually, I'm going to pull up the cast so I can remember everyone's names.
Yeah, the man that opens the door is
David, yeah.
David. Da- David,
This is where my
David.
auditory learning comes in so well
I
because I can do the pronunciations.
and I'm just reading it.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yes, and David is played by Alessandro Nivola. I just pulled that up. I feel like if we say the two main women characters, we can give the man a name, I guess. Guess he deserves it. Um, but yeah, he opens the door. He seems confused to see her there. And, it's so interesting. I actually love, so something that I feel like is like a running thread through this movie is like touch, like physical touch and like
Mhm.
hugs and like love through physical touch. And Ronit goes to give David a hug because she obviously knows this man, and he like backs away so quickly because it's like improper in that community, I believe, to like have physical contact with somebody who's not your spouse. But Ronit, coming from New York, who just like fucked this dude in the bathroom, who I'm sure she didn't even know, it doesn't have any of these hangups from it. But yeah, we find out that it's her father that passed away. He was the head rabbi of this community, and he passed away at a heart attack. And they're doing some type of gathering. I'm assuming they're sitting Shiva, which is like the Jewish tradition of like, I think it's like 7 days. Everyone like stays at the house, and like it's like a mourning period. And please correct me if you know if I'm wrong, or if any of our listeners, I do my best here. Um, but yeah, so she comes in, and like it's not a warm welcome for who you would think like what it would be for a child who just lost a parent.
Yeah. Um, and we also very quickly get the sense that they have had some sort of very close relationship in the past, these two
Mm-hmm.
individuals.
Yeah.
And for a while, I actually thought that maybe they were brother and sister. Um,
Oh.
which in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, I guess, because, you know, there's later lots of comments made about how David was sort of taken in as a son figure by the rabbi. And what actually the relationship was is that these two are best friends, and there is a third best friend,
Yes.
and that is Estie.
Yes. And we meet
And
Oh, go ahead.
you go for it. Go for it.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, we learn that when they're like in the kitchen and they're kind of like they finally like David's very serious and solemn like demeanor kind of cuts, and they get a little joke in here or there, and we're like, oh, they used to be like really good friends. And then she's kind of joking with him like, are you married? Like, oh, who'd you marry? Please, like, don't have married this one girl. And then he like doesn't really answer because he doesn't really want to tell her who she married. And she kind of like jokingly is like, oh my God, like you actually did marry her, didn't you? Like this random girl that they like used to not like or whatever. And he was like, no, no, no. And there's like a really sweet, like you can really see that they used to be friends. But then Estie comes in, who's Rachel McAdams, in a wig, which the first time I saw this movie, tell me if you had the same reaction. I did not know that was a wig until she took it off.
No, I knew it was a wig because
Because you're
that's
more perceptive than me.
well, no, because I know that once they get married, they aren't allowed to show their real hair except to their spouse.
Um, and Esty comes in, and the way it's broken to Ronit that they're married is David said like, "Oh, hey, like I can I said that she could stay with us." And the look on Rachel Weisz's face, or I'm sorry, Ronit's face, is one of like sheer disbelief that they are married.
Yeah, it's now an us, and the us doesn't include her anymore. You can see this used to be a trio.
Mm-hmm.
She has now left the picture, and now they are married. And you can see that there's some sort of betrayal here.
Yeah.
Why? Is there something more than just like, well, we were three best friends, you didn't tell me that you were getting married, or
Yeah.
is there something that's a deeper betrayal than that? And
Yeah.
um y-
And I
at
think
this
it's
point we don't
interesting,
know.
and it's also like important to point out that I feel like this community works similarly to like say like the Amish community, where if somebody leaves the community or like leaves the fold, they are completely cut off from the community. And like I don't want to say ostracized, but like they don't have contact. Like we find out later in the movie that like people are upset that somebody told Ronit that her father died because that's like breaking the rules. Um, and I find that like terribly heartbreaking for the person who leaves. I don't know. It just seems like not only are you like making a decision to like leave this community that you grew up in and were born into and had people that you loved in it, but you're also like you have no contact with them. So she didn't know that her two best friends growing up got married. She might have not even been informed that her father died had it not been for the person who told her, which we find out later who that is. But um yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, I think there's something I noted this kind of later in the book, but I was noticing that it really seems like Ronit doesn't have any sort of distaste or disdain for this community. It's not like she doesn't love them or she doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
even dislike how they operate, really. I think that for her, a lot of it came down to just feeling like she didn't have choice over her life, and
Right.
you know, she couldn't decide, or even further than not being able to decide the path of her life, but her own identity was being told that it wasn't okay,
Yeah.
which I'm maybe getting a little bit ahead of myself, but
I mean, we are a
um
lesbian podcast, so.
yeah, but just speaking on, like the love for the people in her community, that is a really hard thing to have to step away from, and making that choice of knowing like, okay, I may never speak or talk to or see these people again,
Yeah.
and my entire way of life is going to change. And that's a big deal. So that also speaks a lot to the character of Rani, of the sort of risk that she's willing to take, and also the sort of detachment that she's gone through at this point too.
Yeah. Ronit, has that like edge and like bravery, kind of like that bullheadedness about her to her character, where she's gonna do what she wants to do regardless of the implications, I feel like. Whereas like Estie is like, it's so interesting because Estie is very different. She's very like not demure, but like it seems like she's not brave, she's more timid. But she also has this, like, as we go on through the movie, a very intense personality, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like. But before we get there, I wanted to go back to like the physical touch thing because, you know, nobody in this room has comforted Ronit. You know, like when you lose someone, normally you walk into a room and everyone gives you a hug and says, I'm so sorry for your loss, and, you know, all these things. And I want to talk about Fruma, which I want to say is like her aunt, or like a could be a real aunt or a like metaphorical aunt in the community. But as soon as she sees Ronit, she like walks up to her and gives her a hug, and just like you can feel the relief in Ronit's body to like get that hug from someone, like, oh, someone here like still loves me.
Yeah.
And that was like a really powerful scene to me because it's like, you know, sometimes we think of these communities as like a monolith and everyone's the same, but that's so not true. It's the same anywhere. There are people who are going to love you even within these religious communities or these, you know, more conservative communities, and they're going to see you as a person. And she just, you know, is like, I'm so sorry your father passed away, and just gives her this big hug. And to me, I was like, oh, thank God she has like an ally. She has someone there who loves her, you know?
Yeah, that was a really beautiful moment between the two of them. And in contrast to, you can tell that the other people in the room and the people in her community feel betrayed by her, that she
Mm-hmm.
left.
Yeah.
Uh, which we never really get anything about that as to why they might feel wronged or betrayed by her,
Mm-hmm.
except for from her uncle, who kind of makes a comment about like, you were all that your father had, and you
Mm-hmm.
weren't there for him in his last moments. And she kind of makes the argument of, well, I didn't know. I didn't know
Yeah.
he was dying. And he says, well, you would have if you were here.
Which I feel like is so unfair. Like that's so unfair. Like that's like shucking off the responsibility of like a community to inform somebody of the goings on if something's happening, right? Like I don't know. I just felt that was such a her argument made sense to me. She's like, I'm over here in New York. If he was suffering, why didn't anyone tell me? And he's
Mhm.
like, well, if you were here, if you didn't leave, like shaming her for like living her life. And I just, which is that guy is Fruma's husband. So you
Mhm.
see like the interesting dynamic because he almost like gets upset with her, with Fruma, for being like so, like he doesn't like that she's so loving and kind to Ronit, which, yeah, he's a character for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. The next thing that I noted, and let me know if I'm missing something here, is when David makes a comment to Ronit,
Hmm.
where he says that honor is the most important thing. And you can see that Ronit does not agree with him. And that really stuck out to me because I'm now wondering, okay, so clearly this is a point of contention here, and maybe part of the reason why Ronnie left in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, so what does honor mean to this community, and what about it is creating a space where she feels like she's sacrificing something in order to achieve honor, that she
Yeah.
needed to leave or disagree with this. Um, but you can see that he just like fully believes this, and he's so assured and calm when he says this, and then he just moves on, and she's
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah. Everything is very dogmatic. It's a very black and white movie with a lot of like very high contrast situations, and like we said, the dialogue, it's very contrasty when people are going back and forth with Ronit. And that's what I'm saying about her being so bullheaded and like brave. If they're the white, she's the black, right? Like
Mhm.
she's the black sheep even, and yeah, that honor situation was really interesting because she's just like, nah.
Yeah. It's also, this goes hand in hand with whenever she's trying to have a conversation with somebody and she's asking somebody a question and they respond with, may you live a long life.
They don't want to
So,
answer. They just are doing their duty. They're saying the thing that they're supposed to say out of ritual, and that's supposed to like shut people up and like stop the conversation.
yeah, she is definitely out of her element, which this used to be her element.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic.
hmm I think is when you get further away from the community that you were once in, and you step away and you see the rest of the world, and you see how things could be, and they end up not being as harmful or as scary as like maybe what you have been brought up in. I think it's a lot harder to fake it when you go back because you're like, if you guys only knew. And that's not to say it's like a high and mighty stance, because we get into it with Ronit and Estie being like, this is my community and this is what I like. And I do like these things about it. But I think it's hard for somebody who has walked away to come back and then like be in that community for X amount of days that she's going to be there, because there's the funeral for her father coming up. Um, what's it called? A hesped? Is that what it was called? Um,
Remember?
but yeah, so it's just very interesting. So
Oh,
Ronit's going to be staying with David and Estie,
yeah.
and that's interesting.
Yes. And at first I thought that, Esty was getting the sense that Ronit was judging her for this life that she's living, right?
Yeah.
And then Esty starts to, it seems, overcompensate. She starts to, really come on to David and is making the first move with him in a way that seems very clearly unnatural.
Yeah, very forced. Yeah, we see them like, is this when they're in the bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And I mean, they're married, so you're like, why does this seem so unnatural and forced? And he even seems like surprised by it. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
like, and it's like, is she like marking her territory? Like, what is going on here? Um, and it's very interesting. It's so interesting to me for like to hear your perspective as seeing it for the first time, because I feel like the first time I watched it, I was very confused, and then the second time I watched it, everything made sense to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything made, like that scene made so much more sense to me, right? So okay, so yeah, we're in the bedroom, and like let's just talk about this in knowing what's happened, because I'm assuming most people who have listened have seen the movie. But Esty, we find out later on in the movie, is like hella gay, like not interested in men whatsoever. And to me, like I really related with Esty, because I, as like also another like gay woman who was in a heterosexual marriage for almost 10 years, that scene to me where she's like convincing herself. She's trying to convince herself that this is the life she wants, and this is the thing she wants, and this is the man that she wants. And I was like, oh, that's so hard. 'Cause I've been in that situation being like, no, like this is fine. This is what I want. This is it. And it never feels right. Like the scene at the end, more towards the end, where Estie's talking to David after her and Ronit have actually like been together, which we could talk about later. But it's so heartbreaking because she's crying and she just like yells at him. It's always been this way. And to her, I think that's like the first time she was admitting it to herself. But going back to this scene, to me, it's like one of the saddest scenes, because I think she's been able to put this part of herself away, actively putting this part of herself away. And with the arrival of Ronit, everything is stirred up again. And now you have to try even harder to put it away. That's the way she chose to do it, was like, okay, I'm gonna fuck my husband and I'm gonna show that I'm like a good wife, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I have to be, or else my whole life is gonna fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She even, I mean, it's this whole thing too that she says of, well, he's a good man, and they were best friends, and so what what could be better than a good man?
Hmm.
That'll be enough.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
decent enough for me. I'll
Yeah.
get by. And
Yes.
that's something that I'm sure that many people can relate to, and maybe you can too, of
Hmm.
like, well, he's a good man, he's kind to me, we're friends.
Right.
Why
Exactly.
isn't that enough?
Hmm. And I think if Ronit never came back, she would have been fine. I mean, she was probably going to be dying inside her entire life, but it wasn't going to be smacking her in the face. This is literally her like moment of being like, everything's going to change. And what I think is also interesting is I think she brought it on herself for like a specific reason. I think she was so tired of this that she was like kind of testing herself because she is the one that called Ronit to tell
Mm-hmm.
her about her father's passing.
Yeah.
And why would she do that if not to, not that she wanted to rekindle, but she wanted to see. She wanted to see if this, what this was going to do to her. And I like fully understand that. Like it's almost like bringing on a temptation to either to prove to yourself one way or the other like what you are. What am I going to do with my life? Am I going to still have these feelings, or was it a one off? Which I feel like you and I can like understand, like it's not a one off. It's never a one off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a rough movie. I definitely, Estie, I could feel like her. I think Rachel McAdams did such a good job with this role. I don't know who she talked to, who she interviewed, who she, got her inspiration from this role, but I feel like it's what a lot of like queer women trapped in marriages with men feel like, and I think she captured it like incredibly well.
Yeah. I kind of thought, I mean, even though Ronit is kind of presented as the main character, I thought that Esty was the main character.
I know. I agree. I totally agree. I think that's what I was saying earlier. Like when the movie goes on, Esty becomes like she like steps into this like queer bravery inside of herself. And we also learn like Esty is also like, I don't want to like frame it this way, but like she is like the more dominant personality, which is like crazy. Like, they go on this walk together and Ronit says, "This is the place where you first kissed me."
Mm.
And in every single scene where they kiss or they get together, like Esty is the one that initiates.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm like, oh, like that to me is somebody who never stopped thinking about this, like in the sense of like her sexuality. Like I feel like it was always on the forefront of her brain. And she is that like, once she kind of like accepts it in herself, she's like, goes forward, like, and
Yeah.
is the one that initiates and is like, no, I'm gonna go for this. It's very, very interesting. And I think you're so right that she is like the main character. I feel like I'm doing all the talking. I'm so sorry.
No. You know what this movie really reminds me of?
What?
Do you listen to Noah Kahn at all?
A little, yeah, I do.
Do you know the song Orange Juice?
No. So my Noah Khan like song is Dial Drunk.
Oh, that's a really great song.
Yeah, and Stick Season's really good too. But
Also, yeah.
yeah, no, what's Orange Juice?
Well, I'm a diehard Noah Kahn fan. I'm going in June, but
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I'm so excited. And there's a song that he wrote called Orange Juice, and um it kind of tells the story. It seems like there's two people that are somehow in relationship with each other, and one has stayed and one has gone. And the one that has gone has come back, and the one that has stayed is the one that's talking,
Hmm.
and is saying like, there's orange juice in the fridge, help yourself. Like, I know that everybody's drinking, but you're sober. Please help yourself to this orange juice. And then kind of goes on to say like, why did you leave? I've missed you. And
Hmm.
then the narrator says, and you said, and then starts talking from the person who left's point of view.
Yeah.
And then basically this other person is saying, like, after this tragic thing happened, which you find out is a car crash that these two were in together. Um,
Hmm.
this tragic thing has happened, and it seems like they probably killed somebody. Like, how did you stay and just move on with your life?
Yeah.
Like, I had to get out of here. I had to go, and like I have completely changed since that, and you haven't, and nobody else here has. And it's like, how could you possibly do that? Like, I've changed and the world has changed and the world has kept turning, and like, how did the world keep turning? And I was, and then you assume that the person that left is the one that was driving, because it says like, you didn't put those bones in the ground.
Hmm.
And it really reminds me of this movie, because you take it and you put it into this scenario of these two people that were once so close, and now they're not anymore. And the tragic scenario is not a car crash, but it's their love that
Yeah.
wasn't accepted by their community. And one person has stayed, and it seems like their life just kept turning, and they got married and they acted like nothing happened, and the other person, like, completely left their life behind and moved across the world and turned into what seems like a completely different person. And um, it it's a really beautiful, devastating song. You should listen to it.
I will. I'm gonna listen to it as soon as we hop off.
But
Um,
yeah, the whole time I was watching, I was like, ugh, orange juice.
I actually love that. I haven't listened to the song, but even just the name, it's like something so mundane can tell such a, oh my God, I'm like gonna cry, can tell such a story. Like,
Mhm.
you're just like, that small act of like, hey, there's orange juice in the fridge because I was always expecting you to come home and I have it there for you, right? That in and of itself, saying there's orange juice in the fridge, like, it's not a thing. But when you put it in the context of like why it's there and whatnot, that's, yeah, this movie is very similar. In that instance, like, they were always thinking of each other, even all the way, all the years later, and with all the distance between them, once they see each other again and like actually have a conversation about it, their love and what they went through, which happens like sporadically throughout the film. I think the
Mhm.
first instance we see it is when Ronit goes to visit her father's house.
Yeah.
And that's actually like, that's the first time these two are alone together. Yeah, can you tell us about that scene? Because I feel like that's like the next place to go,
Yeah.
especially the candlesticks.
Yeah. Estie never stopped looking out for Ronit.
I
Yeah, even though it seems like her life kept turning, she never stopped looking out for Ronit. She hears at the grocery store that Ronit was walking past, and she goes and she finds Ronit at her father's house, and she meets her there. And you can see the grief. She's grieving as much as Ronit is, and maybe not even for the rabbi as much as she is for Ronit's loss.
Yeah,
And
I think
yeah,
her grief is at, Estie's grief is at such a high level. And I think it's for Ronit.
yeah.
Like, I don't think it has anything to do with the Rav. I don't think it has anything to do with anything but Ronit, because these two have such a connection and such a love for each other that, like, when you see like the love of your life going through a loss, you have no other feelings to feel except those same feelings that she's feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she apologizes to Ronit because the house is messy.
I know.
And she says that she wanted to come clean it, but that the rabbi had told her, not the one that died, not the Rav, but the other rabbi had
The
told
mean
her,
uncle.
yeah, had told her that he was taking care of it and to not worry about it. So
Yeah.
she hadn't come by, and you can see the regret about that, that she wishes that she had come and made sure that it was clean and ready for Ronit to see it.
Yeah.
And so she didn't even know that Ronit was going to come for sure.
Yeah.
So you can see here she is looking out for Ronit even though she doesn't even know that Ronit's coming. And later on she reveals that she had been checking what time it was in New York all since Ronit left. And if that's not something that you do when you love somebody, is you check to see what time they might be sleeping, or if maybe they're sitting down eating breakfast and drinking coffee, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. She just wants to know, hypothetically, what sort of part of her day Ronit might be in.
Mm-hmm.
Estie never stopped loving her.
I know. Yeah, Ronit, that's so beautiful. Esty just wanted to be a part of her life, even though she wasn't actively in her life. And I think that's why she contacted Ronit to let her know. I think she obviously is a devastating thing, but I think it was also an opportunity for Esty to kind of get back into Ronit's life in some way.
Yeah.
And we also find out that Ronit doesn't inherit the house. Her father didn't leave it to her in the will, which is so sad. It was like her only daughter, his only child. And even, David and Ronit have this conversation because she's reading the obituary in the newspaper. And in the obituary, it says that the Rav had no living children, had no children. The Rav had no children. And David tries to make light of it. And he says, oh, it's like shitty reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's terrible journalism right there. And Ronit just is like, yeah, I mean, it's like she was erased from everyone's lives. And the only person who kept her memory alive was Estie.
Yeah.
And every day she kept it alive.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah. So in the house, Estie takes the candlesticks
Yes.
for Ronit, which were her mother's.
Mm-hmm.
Which Ronit was like, "Oh no, I can't take the candlesticks. It's not that big a deal, whatever." But
Well, yeah,
Ronit
because
makes
she wasn't
sure.
gonna be allowed to take anything from the house or the house
Mhm.
itself because her father didn't leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, but Estie makes sure that she gets them. She just slides them right into the suitcase, and and it's in the house that, right. This is the part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
It's the
it's
first one.
and it's in the house. Estie goes to comfort Ronit, and it turns into a little more than comforting. She
Yeah. Well, there's the thing about it starts out with a hug. It's this physical touch layer that runs through this movie to me is so palpable. Like at first it's just like they're just close together and they're, and it turns into this big hug and Ronit even says thank you for hugging her.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
continue.
Estie kisses her.
Mhm.
And at first, Ronit isn't really reciprocating.
Mm-mm.
She's just kind of standing there while Estie's lips touch hers. And that's a little awkward. But
Mm-hmm.
then she finally just kind of gives in. And I think what's happening in her head is that, oh my God, everybody already hates me here. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to fuck everything up and everything's going to be my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of like works through that and then lets her guard down and then just gives in.
Yeah.
So now, they're kissing, but then um again, Ronit pulls away and is like, Estie, oh my gosh, what are you
Well,
doing?
yeah, the kiss like starts out really slow and soft as like they're both like kind of like feeling it out, but then it like switches. It like this kiss changes into like, oh, this is a passionate thing that we're experiencing and we either stop it right now, like right this second, because if we continue for another second, we're not going to be able to stop. That was like
Yeah.
kind of the gist I got from it.
We're having sex against my dead father's fireplace.
Literally, yes. And that's when, and it's interesting because Estie doesn't want to stop. Like Estie is the one that's like, that's what I'm saying. She's the more dominant personality
Yeah.
in this relationship, which I find fascinating.
Yeah. And you can tell too that Estie's feelings are a little hurt when Ronit pulls away.
Hmm.
I mean, I think she's kind of battling with a little bit of rejection there and also a little bit of like, holy shit, did I just fuck up my entire life for her to reject me?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I want to talk about the radio in this
Ah,
moment.
please
Um,
do.
Ronit goes and turns on the radio that's on the mantle,
Hmm.
and this song comes on that both of them clearly know and start singing. Well, I mean, at first it's like a religious channel, and Ronit keeps switching through the channels until this song comes on.
Yeah.
And the lyrics come on, it's the like, you make me feel like I am home again. You make me feel like I'm young again. You make me feel like I am fun again. You know, it's all these things
Hmm.
that it's home again. Ronit feels like she's home again with Estie, and you make me feel like I'm young again. They both feel young again, and they both feel fun again, especially Estie, probably. And then it goes into I will always, and then she immediately just cuts it off, and you see the vibe in her change. And if you know the song, you know
Uh-huh. That's what I was
that
just
the
looking at.
next lyrics are I will always love you. And she cuts it off right before he says love you.
I know. I caught that too. It was so intentional. It, and Estie's kind of singing the song to Ronit.
Yeah.
And oh my God. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so much silence, but there's so much said in this silence of like, this is just a song playing in the background, but neither of them are talking. They're listening to the song. They used to listen to it. Ronit's the one that puts it on. Like, there's so much pining and longing and like just desire, I feel like, in this movie. And you're just like waiting to see what happens. Like, it's like an edge of the
Mhm.
seat type of movie.
Yeah. Also, I watched this in the library,
That's
and
right.
I was
Ah, you can't watch this movie in public.
oh my gosh, especially okay, well, during this like the radio scene, which I think was my favorite part, I was sitting there like trying to look normal. Impossible. Impossible task for me. But then during the sex scenes, um I have the volume all the way down. I'm like DJing my keyboard, which I have a gaming computer.
Yes, you
And
do.
so the whole thing just lights up in like blue and purple and red and goes crazy like I'm at the freaking disco. And so it's like sex on the screen, sound as low as possible, disco on the keyboard. And I'm like, I am drawing so much attention to myself right now. And and then I'm like putting the sound back up when the sex is done. And I'm like, I hope that nobody can hear through my AirPods right now. And um oh my god, I had the worst sensor day of my life yesterday because there was just so much sound. There's a reason I was in the library, and then I get to the library and they're doing freaking construction on the roof. And then
Jesus.
this man came and sat next to me and kept snorting, and I'm like, there are so many seats. Why are you in the one next to me? And I literally got up and left because I couldn't handle it. I
Oh
couldn't.
my God. Sir,
But
you are killing my vibe right now.
yeah. I was such a trooper, and I got through the rest of the movie with this snorting man next to me.
Oh my God, I'm so
And
sorry.
I was just like angling my computer away from him so he wouldn't see the women having sex on my screen.
That reminds me of when I was on a flight home. I went on a school trip to Spain with my Spanish class in like 10th grade. And I decided to watch Atonement, and I was sitting right next to my 60-year-old Spanish teacher. And you know that like library scene in like the green dress where he like puts her up against, you haven't seen Atonement, but he
No.
like puts her up against the library like books and they just like fuck. And I was sitting right next to my 6-year-old Spanish teacher and I was like,
Mortifying.
mortified. I was like, change it. But I didn't know how. And I was just like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
They had airplane movies when you were in high school?
I'm not that old. Oh my God. It was an international flight, so yes. They also had movies when I was that age. Oh man, I used to be the young one in my friend group, and now I'm the old hag who doesn't have, who like friggin' was not have movies on my plane. I love that. That's so funny. Okay, we're chugging along here. We leave the house, and where's the I'm relying on your notes too much. I need to take my own notes.
We leave the house with the candlesticks, they're walking, and kind of the next thing that I want to talk about is in the classroom with Estie, and she's teaching Othello to her class. She's like in the middle of this when she gets brought out of class by the headmaster, and it's because she's been reported because she was seen with Ronit, which bad news for those two.
Correct. Yes, Ronit and Estie had gone on this like midnight walk together where they thought, they wouldn't be seen, and this is when they kind of just first actually talk about the two of them together. And this is the part where I already said they, had been to this tree, and Ronit's like, this is the place you first kissed me, and they go into this like fenced off area and they just like start kissing, and they feel safe for like the first time, but then we find out they're not, because there are eyes everywhere in this community, and we feel like Estie gets away because she puts her hood up and she starts to walk away, and the man and the woman that see them are like, oh, Ronit, hi, what's going on? And they're like, oh, was that Estie? And then she was like, no. But she still gets reported, and that's why she gets pulled out of this class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at this point, David is up for promotion to replace the Rav.
Yeah.
And they question, these other men question, like, well, is Estie gonna be up for it? Like, we know Renit's in town. And he's like, I have my household under control. Why wouldn't Estie be up for it? Estie will support me in everything.
Yeah, and that was the first time we really see him be misogynistic. And it doesn't feel true to him. It almost feels like he's, well, first of all, trying to keep up appearances. Because he says, I keep my house in order. And she'll do what I say. And it feels so forced out of him, because I actually really believe David is a good guy. He just is also hampered by his religious community, not the religion itself, but the dogmatic teaching, right? And yeah, how did you feel about him saying that?
I think that overall, David was a victim in all of this too.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
I think that actually I wrote something down about this. Where is it? Oh yeah. I think he's a victim of the system, but that put them all in this position in the first place.
100%.
Yeah, by not, and what I mean by putting them in this position is by not just letting these two women be who they are.
Yeah.
And and by putting him in a position where he felt like he had to act that way, and by putting them in a position where instead of just being able to be three best friends like they were, where now these two had to be husband and wife, and they had to have sex every Friday, and they
Right.
which
Well, we also find out that was the Rav's fault, because we find out when Estie and Ronit are like kind of reminiscing on one of these walks that they take. There's a lot of walks in lesbian movies. These women. But we find out that I guess it sounds like Estie and Ronit, when they were girls, were either kissing or something was going on in Ronit's room, and the Rav walked in on them and like just had a complete fit. Thank God he wasn't like in The Senator's Wife, the dad in
I
that
was
one.
gonna say that all of these women and all this media, they keep having the same scenario of getting walked in
So
on.
what you'll find in our sapphic education, Haylie, is that we have tragic stories. Everything is a tragedy all the time. We rarely live. No, but um,
Oh God.
yeah. But then she said that Ronit left. Essie says, "You left, and I wasn't doing well mentally." The first couple times I was like, oh, she was, that I watched this movie, I was like, oh, was sad. But the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, I think she had possibly like some type of mental breakdown. Because then she continues to tell Estie what happened. And she says, the Rav thought getting married would cure me. And I mean, yeah, that could be taken as like, oh, that would like fix your sexuality. But she really made it a point to be like, I wasn't doing well mentally. Like in the head, I was really messed up after you left. And she said, if I had to marry someone, David, what could be better than David? Right? And oh God, like that really like broke my heart, because when you're so trapped and you're like searching and like you're not doing well mentally, you're like searching for anything that's going to make you feel better, and all the people you trust and respect are telling you like, do this will do it. And she did, and like nothing got better, you know? So anyway, that was a long-winded roundabout to say they got reported. And David is being questioned about his fitfulness to take over the job, and he is like, yeah, it's all gonna be fine. Meanwhile, I don't think it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so she gets pulled out of and like
Oh
sent
yeah,
home
that is
early.
exactly where we
I
are.
know, we're right there.
Like we didn't miss anything. Okay.
No, we do miss things. We do skip around. So thank you everyone for indulging us. But yeah, so she leaves. She has. I think she gets sent home early, right? Her class gets taken over, and Ronit and her are just like, let's just fucking go somewhere. I can't stand all these eyes on me everywhere. I just want to be alone with you.
Yeah. They hop on a train, they walk, blah, 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 blah. It looks like they end up in London,
I know. Where does this take place?
England.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Listen to their accents.
Okay, well, Rachel McAdams' accent is terrible. I was like, what is she trying to say? I gotta look this up.
I was halfway through the movie and then I went, wait a second, do they have British accents?
Yeah, because they're all terrible. The accents. Wait, let's get to the sex scene though, because it's one of the
Yeah.
hottest scenes I've ever. Okay, so I'll give you my like top sex scenes.
Okay.
This one in Disobedience.
Okay.
Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan in Ammonite.
I haven't seen it.
I know, we'll watch it, don't worry. It's incredible. And okay, those are like my top two. I have another one. What the fuck is it? It's not Portrait of a Lady on Fire does not come close. That was not a good one. Oh man. Okay, I can't remember. I'll tell you later when I remember it. But those two scenes, whew, Saoirse Ronan sits on Kate Winslet's face.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Set in like 1800s England, in like there's like no words in that film either. It's a great scene.
what about Black Swan? Mila Kunis,
I've seen it.
Natalie Portman.
I saw it one time. I'm trying to remember it. I don't remember that they
She
fuck.
eats her out.
Ooh, hot. I can't remember it. I was half watching. For reasons I will not discuss. Yeah, wink at me all you want, Haylie. That you're accurate. We will talk about that. We'll talk about Rachel Weisz and Rachel McAdams scene though, because literally top two. Top two scenes for me. This is where, if you guys listen to our Jen Lyon interview, there's some spitting action. There's a lot of stuff, but it's also a beautiful scene. Let's not like discount how beautiful this scene was too.
Yeah. I made myself dizzy winking.
You didn't have to wink that hard. It wasn't really that hard or difficult to figure out what I was doing during Black Swan. Oh my God.
This was a beautiful, beautiful sex scene.
Okay, we're gonna get it together.
To watch in the public library.
Haylie and I have lost it all. We were out late last night.
We were out till 8 p.m.
Whatever, we're tired. Someone's 8 p.m. is someone else's 2 a.m., okay? Okay, so they rent this hotel room in North London, and yeah, it's so quiet. The whole scene is so quiet, except for Rachel McAdams' sex noises, which are very hot.
Oh, I have a comment about that.
Ooh, what?
Okay, so they were so natural in this one. They were literally the exact same sex noises that she was making in her sex scene with David earlier. But they were so forced before, and now they were just coming out of her.
Well,
like
that's
they just were happening.
Yeah, you know what? Good job bringing that up, honestly, because I wanted to talk about that too. When we see her and David having sex, she's making the noises, but her face is blank. She's looking to the side, her eyes are open, and she's just, and boy, that hit home for me, because again, I have been in that same situation where you're just like, okay, I'm gonna just do it. Like, and it has nothing to do with the husband, like nothing at all. It's just like, this is what we do. These are the noises I make. This is what, and yeah, with Rachel Weisz, they are the same noises, but they're different. Like her eyes are shut, her back is arched, she's like actually enjoying herself.
Yeah. It was just like so stiff versus passion and heat.
Yeah.
And real connection with each other.
Yeah.
And also that feeling of just, if there's somebody that you love and that you have missed for years and years, and all of a sudden you have your hands on them, that's what is happening on screen.
100%. Absolutely. I liked when they were both using their hands on each other at the same time. I thought that was so hot. I was like, yes, I love that. That's like, so I just feel like it's weird to say like female friendly, but like it's like a sex act that only like two women can do. And it's like, yeah. And history will call them close friends, besties.
I love when adults that I know very well ask me like, how do lesbians have sex? And I'm like, are you really asking me how I have sex? Because that's such a weird question for you to ask.
I've gotten that question a couple times, and I'm like, well, you clearly don't have good sex, because if you did, you would be able to figure it out.
Yeah, like, do you really solely use a penis in the vagina and that's your entire sex?
Right. Which we can
That's
also
a sad life, my friend.
Seriously, I don't get people who don't have any imagination. It's so weird to me. But yeah, and then
sorry to my grandparents listening if you ever do. Oh no.
Mom, you should have turned this off 10 minutes ago. Please don't listen to this. That's great for us. It's fine. Whatever. Yeah, but okay, so the spitting scene. They've already like been having sex for probably like 3 hours at this point, because lesbian sex is a long time. I say it's like a what's it called? Like a portal?
Marathon.
Yeah.
Wait, what
I was gonna say
about?
like it's like a time warp. Like you're like, oh, we've been fucking for like 4 hours now. That's oops. Like how'd that happen?
No, yeah, it's true.
But like things have like slowed down, and Rachel Weisz is like on top of Rachel McAdams, and they're just like looking at each other, and then like Rachel McAdams opens her mouth and Rachel Weisz like fits in her mouth. And like the pleasure on Rachel McAdams' face when she like swallows, I was like, oh, holy fuck. That's a that's one to keep in the brain right there.
Lauren's in the bedroom. She's like, and this is a little thing I got from Disobedience.
This is what I learned when I watched this movie. It wasn't the Jewish traditions, it was the spitting.
She has this citation on her ceiling so that her partner can see it.
Yeah. Okay, no more comments on that. We won't be going into that. If it was on the ceiling, my partner couldn't see it.
She has the citation on the pillow behind her head.
Yep, perfect. We're hilarious.
If you watch our TikToks, you know what she got.
Follow us on TikTok, guys. Okay, let's get into the ending here because it's rough. Because Ronit lives in New York, and we also have seen David and Estie have sex twice in this movie, which is nice. It's not nice, but I'm saying it's nice that it's not forced. Because Ronit says, like, oh, do you have to have sex every Friday with your husband, Estie? She's like, no one's getting beat if we don't feel like it. Like, she's, like, defending the community, but, like, also she does have sex with him every Friday, it seems.
Yeah.
So, now what happens?
Well, it's Friday, we assume. And she's in the bedroom with David, and they're standing close to each other. It looks like, he's trying to have sex with her. He's making an advance, and she says, please don't. And he doesn't move away. He doesn't stop touching her. He doesn't change anything about his stance. And then we cut to both of them on the bed, unclothed, and she looks like she can't believe what just happened, and then cut to she's running into the bathroom to throw up.
Yeah.
So this is a really big shift in the kind of behavior that David has.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see now how threatened he is feeling and the way that he thinks that he's going to fix this. And also, this act in itself, I think took a lot of the trust away that she had for David.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe pushed her over the edge a little bit in the decision that she made of whether or not she wanted to stay.
Yeah.
And she ends up asking him for her freedom. I think that she would have never ever thought that he would do that to her.
Yeah, I don't think it was in her realm of understanding of him as a character. And my thing about it too is I don't think he would have done that had he not been questioned by these rabbis and had all of this stuff coming up. Because David also knew about Ronit and Estie from their childhood, right? And I think for him, his life was falling apart as well. And he was trying to keep I'm not making excuses for him, but trying to keep some type of semblance of his life together and trying to convince himself that, like, no, everything's fine. Everything's good. This is normal. Like, and so to have her be like, no, please don't, especially like right after she had just had sex with someone else, right? and for him to then do that, it's such a, again, a dichotomy of like a black and white of like consent and not consent.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And then the thing about asking him for her freedom is really interesting because you shouldn't, I don't think freedom is something you can ask for, right? Like I understand, obviously I'm not saying there's like a problem with the writing in the movie or anything. I'm just, and it's just a crazy thing to have to ask for your freedom.
Yeah. I mean, the way what freedom implies is that you're trapped or imprisoned in some way.
Right. And so then he says no. Like he says no, and now he has to give this big speech at the funeral, and he's going through it. I think he's reckoning with his beliefs. He's reckoning with what he's done to Estie at this point. And also we find out, spoiler, and we forgot to say it, but Estie finds out that she's pregnant.
Hmm.
And that's a whole nother layer when you bring a baby into something. And he's like, because she tells him that she's pregnant in the same breath that she asks for her freedom. And he's like, we've always wanted this. This is what we've wanted. And, she's like, but I want to leave. I know that, but like, I want to leave. And so he says no. And then Estie brings Ronit to the hesped, to the funeral. And he has to get up and give this speech. And it's kind of like the bookends of this movie where we have the Rav giving the speech at the beginning, and then we have David giving the speech at the end. And it's a redeeming scene, I feel like, for David. But it's a hard scene to watch for sure.
Yeah. Well, and in this scene where Esty asks him for his freedom, right before that, she's been missing.
Mm-hmm.
And this was when Ronit had decided, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going back to New York. And she was at the airport. And David had essentially told Esty, like, whatever, make the decision you want to make. You either go with her or you stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so David was in his room sleeping, and Ronnie was at the airport, and we see Esty kind of standing there in the dark looking at David, and then we
Mm-hmm.
see her leave. We see her go to a pharmacy, and she's just standing there looking at the medication. And this is the point in the movie where I thought that the Othello thing was coming true, and also earlier in the movie
Oh.
at the
I thought that's when she bought the pregnancy test. I thought
she
that's why she
did.
went to the pharmacy. Okay, yeah, yeah.
She
But
did.
you were, oh, I see what you're
But
saying.
my mind went somewhere else because at this point we don't know she's pregnant, and I like
Right.
couldn't see what this I couldn't read what was on any of
Yeah,
these.
so you were thinking she was gonna like get some medication and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And earlier in the movie at dinner, there was a scene where Ronit kind of had a little bit of an explosion at everybody.
Yeah.
And she had made this comment where, like, well, thank God that I didn't stay and get married and spend 10 years in a loveless marriage and then try and kill myself. And here's Esty, who stayed, got married, spent maybe 10 years in a
Mm-hmm.
loveless marriage, and oh my God, is she now gonna kill herself? And
Yeah.
now she's at the pharmacy. The love of her life just left, and she also just absolutely blew up her life. She just got raped by her husband, and like, is this what she thinks that her out is? So
Yeah.
that's what I thought was happening. And then she took this medication that she bought, and she went to a hotel room, and then she's standing there praying. So then Roni ends up coming back because David called her, and they're looking for her, they're looking for her, they're looking for her. And then that's when Roni or Roni and David come back to the house. Esty comes down the stairs. She tells them